We are at Prestonwood in our worship center, thinking about anticipating a great event coming up on April the 29th. It's called Making Heaven Crowded. And you're going to speak?
Yes, and so are you.
I'm going to speak.
What is happening here? Something is not right. We need to understand what is happening inside of these churches.
We live in a culture that is just endlessly curious about things that don't matter.
This is the first move, deciding for you what matters and what doesn't.
Curiosity can totally derail us as Christians. Completely. And it doesn't allow the Lord to use your life in a way that glorifies Him.
This is the most serious part. Curiosity is no longer framed as neutral. It's framed as spiritually dangerous.
Erika Kirk just got caught promoting yet another fake Christian pastor who allegedly covered up some very dark crimes within the Southern Baptist Convention. Jack Graham, the lead pastor at Prestonwood Baptist Church, was featured in a detailed report on the alleged widespread crimes within the SBC. Despite a full-blown federal investigation into these matters, Graham has repeatedly silenced accusers, blocking anyone on social media who dared to ask him to address the allegations, and dismissing the entire matter as nothing more than a hoax. And now, after all of that, Erika Kirk is platforming this very same pastor as part of her Make Heaven Crowded tour. And this is not the first time Erika has chosen to endorse a disgraced pastor. She previously invited Pastor Greg Laurie as the main speaker on her tour, the same Greg Laurie who was accused of covering up a trafficking operation in Romania that was directly linked to his megachurch. So the pattern here is impossible to ignore. So the question that every Christian should be asking themselves right now is this: how many shady and compromised pastors does Erika need to push into the spotlight before people realize they are being played? She is putting these men on stage, watching the audience applaud, filling the seats, and encouraging people to open their wallets, all while the truth about who these men really are sits right out in the open. She is literally mocking the very people she claims to be serving. And she is doing it with a smile on her face and walking away richer every single time. But the story goes much deeper than just bad choices in guest speakers. Erika is platforming these pastors not only to mock Christians, but also to track them and harvest their personal data without them ever knowing. According to independent investigators like Zach Costello, phones have been actively tracked at every major Christian church on the West Coast, covering states including California, Arizona, Nevada, and Colorado. This tracking includes churches that are directly affiliated with Turning Point, such as Scottsdale Bible, North Phoenix Baptist, Palmcroft, and several others across the region.
The Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs is also listed on a FARA registration numbered 7653, paying a company called Show Faith by Works, LLC, over $4 million to geofence Christian churches and congregations around America to educate them about Israel.
If you attend any of these churches or show up to any Turning Point events, your devices are being geofenced without your knowledge and certainly without your consent. And when you look at who sits on the board of one of these geofencing companies, the picture becomes even more troubling. Two of the people closest to Erika are connected to this operation: her mother Lori Franzi and her close friend Tyler Bower. The reason they are tracking Christians at places of worship is to bombard them with carefully crafted propaganda, using manufactured and twisted biblical arguments to push a specific political agenda forward. And this is the very same agenda that Charlie himself tried to resist and push back against in the months leading up to his assassination. The people around Erika are not just using the church as a platform, they are using it as a tool of control.
My moral character is now being put into question, Megan. I have less ability sometimes online to criticize the Israeli government about backlash than actual Israelis do. And that's really, really weird.
And to make the entire operation even darker, this scheme is allegedly being referred to behind closed doors as Operation Mocking Pastor. That name alone tells you absolutely everything you need to know about the intent behind it. The people running this operation know exactly what they are doing. They are fully aware that they are mocking the very faith they are pretending to uphold and serve. Erika's Make Heaven Crowded tour is not about spreading faith or bringing people closer to God. That is simply the cover story. Underneath it, according to investigators, it is a massive surveillance and psychological operation designed to control the narrative, gather data, and manipulate believers. The only encouraging sign in all of this is that more and more people are beginning to see through it. Even those who remained completely loyal to Turning Point in the immediate aftermath of Charlie's assassination are now walking away after personally witnessing deeply disturbing things at Erika's so-called faith convention.
So I went to a TPUSA faith event tonight, and Like, before he even gets into preaching or talking about politics, he begins by calling out Candace Owens and saying that she is evil and anti-Semitic.
Now let's go back to the specific Pastor Erika just invited to speak on her tour, because the allegations surrounding this man are genuinely sickening and deserve to be laid out clearly. A video recently surfaced showing Erika cozying up with Jack Graham from Prestonwood Baptist Church in Dallas, Texas. In that video, it was confirmed that Graham will be joining Erika on her Make Heaven Crowded tour as a featured speaker. So it is worth taking a very close look at exactly who this man is and what he has been accused of doing.
Everybody, Jack Graham here with Erika, Kirk, and we are at Prestonwood in our worship center thinking about anticipating a great event coming up on April the 29th. It's called Making Heaven Crowded. And you're going to speak?
Yes, and so are you.
I'm going to speak.
We're so blessed and so grateful for all of your support, and we are just thrilled that you are behind us and just really honored and excited to see what the Lord's going to do.
Now, these events are taking place all over the country. It's part of a Turning Point USA Faith. And our friend Lucas Miles, along with others, will be speaking. We're going to fill this house to God's glory and probably overflow it. And the goal is to unite the church in bringing people to Christ.
Amen.
Preaching the gospel, preaching truth, bringing people to Christ.
The most critical thing to understand about Pastor Jack Graham is that in May of 2022, he was specifically named in a major report on sexual abuse cases that took place inside Southern Baptist churches. That report stated clearly that Pastor Graham covered up the crimes of a youth music minister at Prestonwood Baptist Church named John Langworthy. Langworthy had previously admitted directly to church officials that he had committed criminal acts against students under his care. Despite knowing this, Pastor Jack Graham allowed Langworthy to be quietly removed from his position without ever notifying law enforcement or alerting the public in any way. And just to give you a sense of how deep this cover-up truly goes, Minister Langworthy eventually pleaded guilty to the charges, but managed to avoid prison time entirely under the terms of his plea agreement. After that, he went on to become a youth music minister at Morrison Heights Baptist Church in Clinton, Mississippi, where he was later accused once again of committing similar crimes against multiple boys. The pattern continued because the people who knew the truth chose to stay silent, and Jack Graham was one of those people. Going back to what that same report revealed about Prestonwood Baptist Church, it found that senior officials at Pastor Graham's church had developed a clear and consistent pattern of intimidating victims and the advocates who tried to speak on their behalf. The level of hostility directed at those who came forward was staggering. One official at the church went as far as accusing victims of running a satanic scheme, claiming their purpose was to distract the church from its work of evangelism. That is how these victims were treated by the very institution that should have protected them. A former member of the church, who also happens to be the sister of one of the victims, came forward and specifically named Pastor Jack Graham as someone directly responsible for covering up the crimes of Minister Langworthy at Prestonwood. This woman shared that Langworthy had approached her brother and offered to take him under his wing, to mentor and disciple him. What followed after that offer was too disturbing to describe in full detail. She also shared that her mother had reached out directly to Pastor Graham to report what Langworthy had done. Rather than taking action, all Graham offered was for the church to cover the cost of her brother's counseling. When her mother pressed further and asked whether Graham intended to warn other churches or report Langworthy to the new congregation he was moving to, Graham refused and made it clear he considered the matter no longer his responsibility. And this is the man, with this specific history, that Erika Kirk personally handpicked to stand on her stage and preach about Jesus Christ to thousands of believers. What makes it all the more disturbing is that even after his church was placed under federal investigation, and even after Minister Langworthy himself pleaded guilty and was convicted of those crimes, Pastor Graham still had the audacity to publicly deny the allegations. He posted on his social media account stating that from the very beginning, the outcry and reporting of a systemic sexual abuse problem within the SBC had been nothing but a hoax. But the contradiction is glaring. How can something be called a hoax when one of your own ministers was taken to court, pleaded guilty, and was convicted of the very crimes being described? And Langworthy is not an isolated case. The broader investigation into the Southern Baptist Convention uncovered widespread and deeply systemic misconduct, with over 700 victims of sexual abuse identified over a 20-year period. A 2019 joint investigation conducted by the Houston Chronicle and the San Antonio Express News revealed that approximately 300 80 clergy members had faced allegations of misconduct dating back to the 90s. The most troubling finding was that the vast majority of them either continued serving in ministry positions or quietly relocated to new churches where nobody knew their history, allowing the cycle to continue completely unchecked. And when anyone has the courage to bring any of this up publicly, Pastor Graham's response is not to engage or address it. He simply blocks them. If you have spent any time watching Pastor Graham's sermons, you will also notice something that sounds very familiar. He actively discourages his congregation from thinking critically and openly shames anyone who dares to ask questions. In one sermon, he spoke at length about people who take to social media to criticize the church, the pastor, or what is being preached. He labeled those people as critics and told his audience never to be part of that kind of criticism, calling it detrimental and damaging to the cause of Christ. He continued by saying that this type of thinking invites distraction into a person's life, feeds their fears, reduces them to half of who they really are, and ultimately causes them to question their faith. He wrapped it all up by dismissing modern curiosity as a culture that is endlessly interested in things that simply do not matter. Now step back and think about that for a moment. Why would both Erika Kirk and a pastor who has been accused of covering up serious crimes want their audience to stop asking questions and stop thinking critically? That is a question worth sitting with. Because Charlie himself built an entire movement around encouraging people to question everything and never accept a narrative without examining it first. But Pastor Graham's behavior does not stop at silencing critics. When he is not busy doing that, he turns his attention to publicly attacking the Pope. After Pope Leo XIV recently posted a simple message stating that genuine stability and peace cannot be achieved through war, Erika's chosen pastor responded publicly by calling it total nonsense from a false office and suggesting the Pope should study the Middle East before speaking on such matters. And here is the part that makes no sense at all. Erika Kirk is Catholic. So why would she choose to platform and celebrate a pastor who openly disrespects and dismisses the leader of her own faith? After everything laid out here, if you still believe that Erika Kirk and the pastors she chooses to surround herself with are genuine servants of God, then there is a bridge to sell you. Or maybe they are people of God. But the real question worth asking is which God they are actually serving.